like a Zoom, like a Zoom doctor visit.
I'll send you
Make
a
the money
copay
well.
via Venmo. All right,
Yeah.
here we go. A little behind the scenes here. Here we go. We're going to come down now. Here we go. Good luck, sip of coffee. Cheers.
Good luck. Cheers.
Here we go. All right. Hey, guys, it's Pat Largo, and welcome to Comedians Uncorked, Uncut. Another episode here, and I get to talk to some great folks here, comedians, usually in Florida. I've talked to some friends around the country, which is always fun. And today, a really special guest, because I've been seeing his stuff all over social media and hearing great things about him. And he's a dual threat. He's a real-life professional who saves lives and also is a stand-up comedian. And this man is from Sarasota, Florida. It is Vien Phommachanh.
Close. I'll give you full credit. Phommachanh.
I was gonna say Krzyzewski.
No, it's not your fault. We have those names with extra consonants just to throw white people off. We like to let you suffer and then ridicule you. All you have to do is ignore like most of the letters, and it makes perfect sense.
I go one better and just ignore most of the people.
Yeah, true.
I'll be honest with you. If there's one more thing white people don't need to suffer for right now, and I apologize, that so now is it because it almost sounded like you put an L in there. So it's Phommachanh?
Yeah, Chan.
Okay, and I was doing that soft C at the end, that Shan, but it's Chan.
It's a 6-letter name that we stretch out to 20 letters. It's kind of like my act.
Well, yeah, right.
Stretch out to like a half an hour, you know?
Just keep the laughs coming. Well, thank you for being here, man. And, it's great to just talk comedy again. It's just great to talk with people, even though we're doing it, I guess you're in the Sarasota area. I'm here in Pasco County in Florida. But slowly but surely things are happening. I always like to ask the same question to kick things off. How are you and your family dealing with all the craziness going on?
My family and I are well. We've been very fortunate. None of us are sick. The kids were sort of stripping the paint off the walls a little bit, you know, like my wife and I are kind of reclusive. So we're cool being home, and we like being home with the kids because they don't want anything to do with us. My kids are that age where they're like, like parents, so stupid. So like having them caged at home is perfect because we get to torment them, and it's all veiled as love, right? But they do get sort of like kids in your house for too long. They do become like the dog that starts to chew on the kennel. Like we have no paint on our walls, you know, like my shirts have no thread. They've used it to like make bracelets.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. So they're back in school, and they're happy to be back in school. So,
thank God. How old are they?
my daughter is 11. My son is 15.
Okay, so it's, and especially the 15-year-old in that prime anti-parent brain.
They're ready to conquer the world. They're like King Kong at that stage.
Yes, because my 91-year-old mother lives with me, and she's in the same stage. She's like so anti her son, which is me, and it's just a bad scene.
She would let you go. She would let you go.
I'm putting, and this is true. It's all role reversal now. I'm putting her starting next week. Next Thursday, I'm putting her in senior daycare, which is a local, a local ALF down the street from me. And she had her COVID test. She's fine. And then they'll let her go in for a few hours every week. I'm going to try to bump it up to 2 times a week. And she can hang out with the other old folks and just, have lunch, just chill out, play games.
Yeah.
I just need a break. Like, it's just between that, my dog, and just being at the house, all my gigs being canceled this year, everything sucks. So, and she's a drinker. So, I mean, how else is she going to wash down her 6 pills a day?
Yeah.
But,
well, you know how like as you get older, it sort of mimics your early life. You go to daycare and it's like preschool.
Yeah.
My parents are terrified of that stage of their life. They every time I talk to them, they're like, "Don't put us in a nursing home," but they're terrified of that stage. And so I told them, I'm going to go into the nursing home business. Right? We're just going to mimic the preschool system. I'm going to have like a Montessori adult daycare for them to go in, so they can learn at their own pace. They can body paint or slip and slide. They'll love it.
That's a great idea, actually. And you're right, though. The folks do get nervous, don't they? Like, and
Yeah.
I don't have the heart to do it. I mean, if God forbid dementia set in for either one of them, someone's going to the facility. But right now, she is of sound mind and body, and that's great. So I'm like, I'll just keep her here at the house. The state of Florida tells me it's less money to spend if I keep her here at my house. No one's paying me crap to do it, but they're telling me it's saving the state money. So
Yeah.
I'm glad I can help out the state of Florida, even though it took them 5 months to get me my first unemployment check.
Well, I mean, you're saving up treasures in heaven.
Oh, that's what they tell me, right? The Lord is supposed to have a little special thing for me. So we'll talk about that. My God. Now,
they know the strength of your conscience.
Yeah, it's just too much for me to comprehend. So Vien, you're also, people don't know, a doctor. Your specialty is you're an ear, nose, throat doctor, correct?
I am.
And what's the actual the title of that though? Because it's one. It's a specialty.
The real name is otolaryngologist. It's like my name. You know, you can't pronounce it. No one knows what it means. So I call most people to say ENT. The danger there is then they confuse you with EMTs.
Right.
And then they're like, "Ooh, you ride around in ambulances," which is a good job, but it's not what I do. I help people with the air-filled spaces in their heads.
Good.
The mucus-filled spaces in their heads.
You went to college for this.
I did. If you work really hard for a really long time, you can have a job where you talk to people about snot all day long. It's every boy's dream.
Have you heard Joe List joke about that?
I did.
Oh,
you actually told me about it, and I'm sad that I missed it the first time around, but I love it. I think that stretch where he talks about doctors in the middle is so true, and it's painfully funny to me.
It's painfully funny, and it comes from a good place because he's not a drunk anymore, so he's still funny, thank God. One of the great Joe List stories is when he got blackout drunk and was at a woman's house, and he literally shit in her shoe overnight. He goes, yeah, I went to the bathroom. I had to go to the bathroom at whatever godly hour in the morning. I'm blackout drunk, and the shoe looked good enough to me. He woke up the next morning. She was at work, so he had the whole place to himself. He had to be on a plane later that day to go do a show somewhere. Yeah. He sees the shoe. He goes, there's no way I could have saved it. It's just covered and filled with human excrement. So he goes, without showering, mind you, in the same clothes that he has actual human excrement on, his pants. He goes to the airport. He boards the plane. He gets to the show in the same clothes.
Yikes. Does
the show, apparently just murders it. And then he decided after that, I really got to stop drinking. But for the people who don't know, and I have it here, I don't know if I want to pull it up. It might be too much of a pain in the ass. But Joe List, if anyone knows about Joe List, he has this really dry kind of a sense of humor. And then he talks about, he goes, I had to go to the ear doctor. And he goes, not too many people go there. So they had to combine forces with ear, nose, and throat. He goes, it's really the only profession that they combine those jobs. And I'm probably going to butcher this part. He goes, you never hear of the, I'm an ankle, forehead, pussy doctor. So, yes. And it's true. That is just Joe List. Him and Mark Norman with those Tuesday with Stories, their podcast. It's fantastic. Now, how long have you been in the medical profession, and then how long have you been doing stand-up comedy?
I graduated med school in 2005, so I guess you'd say 15 years in medicine. Okay. I've been doing stand-up for about 2 years.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And you're all over the place. I mean, you must be kicking ass because you only been doing stand-up 2 years, and you've been all over.
Yeah, I feel like, here's how I explain it. Like, I've always been someone who, when I do something, it's over the top.
Right.
And I feel like I've been a comic longer than I've been a comic. Like, I grew up watching comedy, loving comedy, studying comedy. And when I finally did it, it was sort of just, it's kind of like the kid who's like on the bench his whole life and finally gets his shot. Like, I just had put it off, and I probably should have done it sooner.
Yeah.
But when I did it, it was like a fish in water. Like, my very first set to this day could be my first set ever. Like, I took a class locally at McCurdy's, Les McCurdy and Ken Sons, 3 classes and then a show. And I did a show expecting nobody to laugh, but I went 2 minutes over because of the amount of laughter and applause. And that's the kind of thing that just gets you hooked. And then after that moment, it's literally the only thing I do outside of work and family. You know, like I spend every day writing. Try to get on every show I can. And I was just in the right place at the right time. You know, I landed at a club that gave me a lot of stage time. I'm featuring there this weekend at the Laughton Comedy Cafe. Saturday, I've got 2 shows. Shameless plug.
Good.
But yeah, I mean, I think just because I love it so much, and that I'm sort of that OCD, like, you know, over the top kind of person, I think I've got more miles than my time would suggest. And you know, I'm here to stay.
And if you're funny, you're funny. And I know that your background is you immigrated here very young from Laos, right?
Yeah, I was about 3 when I came to the States. My parents were war immigrants.
Oh,
We
wow.
lived in Thailand as refugees, and then we came to the States after the Vietnam War. Laos didn't fare well after Vietnam.
Correct.
So
Now, when you were here as a kid, because we all have our stories about comedy, what you see first, or what you grew up on and made you laugh, and you go, oh, I like this. Coming here to this country, obviously different from being where you're from. When was your first memories of like comedians or funny movies, and you were like thinking, oh, this is funny, and I wouldn't mind trying to get into acting or doing something down the road?
You know, it wasn't it wasn't in the forefront of my mind. Here's what happened. My parents had to really work. They always had multiple jobs. They were never home, and we didn't have babysitters 24/7. So the TV was the babysitter. You know, I had a grandmother that was home with me, but she wasn't very interactive. She's very old. And so growing up, I was raised by Mr. Drummond from Different Strokes.
Yeah.
What you talking about, Willis? And then I was raised by the Papadopouloses, Webster.
Yep.
Right? Little Gary Coleman.
Yep.
Like knockoff Gary Coleman. And it was like everything that was on, I watched. I watched every sitcom. I watched every, you know. Then later on, comedy blew up in the 80s. I was a child of the 80s. I was born in the late 70s, you know, young life in the 80s. Comedy blew up in the 80s, you know. There was comedy everywhere, every channel. I'd stay up late watching Comic Strip Live. I would stay up late watching Evenings at the Improv, you know, Eddie Murphy, Bill Cosby, you know, who's, you know, have to qualify that these days.
Right.
But I, you know, all of the classic comedians, Chris Rock, you know, all these people, Robin Williams, they were imprinted in my mind, and my persona was kind of cobbled together from people I saw on TV, because I didn't have a lot of interaction. Like, you know, I was sort of isolated at home. I would go to school and then I would watch TV. So I didn't even act like a normal kid. I would say stuff like, what you talk about, Willis? You know, like this little Asian kid acting like Gary Coleman. And which
nowadays would get you shot.
Yeah. I think that would be wrong cultural appropriation, and I would have to apologize. And I apologize. So, you know, it all kind of came together as this weird personality. Like I had like a very serious, you know, kind of binary side to me that worked hard and did school and did medical, and that was sort of like that's the standard issue Asian upbringing. Okay. My parents were like any other Asian parents. I think Ronnie Chen really nailed it in his special. He's like, Asian parents want their kids to be doctors, and it doesn't make sense. It's like an obsession, you know, and nowhere on that list is it like they want you to help people. Okay. Right. It's just a thing. And so I obliged, and I did it, and I love it. But the other side of me, like the real side of me, is just this kooky guy who's always telling stupid jokes and making people laugh. And then one day I was like, let's do this on the stage, you know, and since then it's been like, I love doing it. You know, it's become a gift.
Well, yes, that's it. I mean, you have a gift to help people, you know, with being a doctor. But I mean, like you said, your first time on stage, you know, and you did great, and the applause and the laughter, and it's a drug, right? Like it's like it makes you go, wow. It's like playing good in a sport. Like people don't like golf, and all of a sudden they play good or they, even if they played bad, they're like, I really like this. And all of a sudden they get addicted, and they're playing 6 times a week. So when that laughter, man, is just that drug, right? It's just so cathartic. But again, you know, and you probably didn't even need comedy classes per se. I mean, if you're funny, you're funny. You'll get direction on stage, and you'll learn how to put the mic in and out. It's not that difficult, but it can be difficult.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you're funny, you're funny. You've only been doing comedy full time 2 years, and I've seen you do. I mean, were you at the Ice House in California?
Yeah, I've been to the Ice House. This year, I was on Dat Fan and Friends at the Ice House.
Nice.
Great show. I did 2 shows there. I was a finalist in the Clean Comedy Challenge this year in Nashville. There were 4 finalists, and I was you know, did well enough to do that. I've been, you know, it's really, a lot of doors have opened this year. It's taken me places that I didn't expect. You know,
Sure.
I wouldn't have predicted it at this stage or ever actually. But going back to what you said about classes, I do think classes are important. I'm a class person, you know, it's just, again, it's that other side of me.
Mm-hmm.
Comedy is very challenging, and I don't want to make it sound like it was easy, like, you know, like I took to it well, but I did need to learn. Being a funny person and having good instincts, there is a skill to it that I respect wholly, and I'm constantly taking classes just to refine that. You know, you can have a funny story, and it's a funny end of story, a funny story to think about, but getting it to the audience and giving them 10 punches out of it, that's the skill that I'm still refining, and that's where the newness is. Mm-hmm. And learning from seasoned comics who know how to make this story at 20 punchlines. You know, I think that's the part of it that funny people need to learn to be comics, and you know, definitely it took me a little bit. I mean, I've definitely eaten it on stage telling a funny story where no one was interested, you know. So.
Yeah. Now, and is that like your style? Because I mean, like, are you? And I agree. Like, if you're a storyteller, it's, unless it's really interesting, and you could go 25, 30 seconds even, which is a long time.
Yeah.
Without a laugh, but then kick it in, or it comes to be a huge punchline. But are you that guy that likes to do, not like set up punchline, but I mean, do you like to, if you're doing a story, you know, if it's a 60-second story, every 4 or 5 seconds, give or take, or 6 seconds, I want to get a reaction.
I'm an anecdotal comic. I do stories, but I do break them up so that there's setups and punches along the way, you know, to keep the audience engaged. I go for sort of a big laugh. I have these big bits that are crafted together, and then I break them into little mini stories or little mini jokes, and that's my style. You know, my life experience has been, it's an interesting combination of things, and it's just telling stories about what I've been through, medical stories about being an immigrant, you know, being sort of a weirdo my whole life, sort of the outside guy my whole life. A lot of that is sort of the ingredients of my comedy, and so a lot of it is storytelling. I just like telling, you know, things that I found funny along the way. You know, I think my favorite comic is John Mulaney, and he. He's sort of the model for me in terms of what kind of comic I want to be. You know, I love everything that he does.
He's great. He's got that self-deprecating type stuff, you know, but you know, with that New York, you know, style, right? I mean, but again, it's all about great stories. I mean, Mulaney, I love him. I saw his last couple of Netflix specials. I love hearing background stories. I like hearing stories about whatever. So if I'm watching, behind the music, right? I want to hear the stories about Metallica. I want to hear the stuff on the road. When Mulaney talks about his SNL days, I love hearing, you know, him writing and meeting Mick Jagger. Now I mean, I don't know if you guys' styles are similar, because he is a storyteller as well, if I'm not mistaken. But you have, you know, you're an entertainer. You have a whole package, really. It's not just the look, and it's true. There's a look. You know, when Dat Fan was on stage years ago, right, for Last Comic Standing, right, he's got a look. There's a certain look. So you got your background, the intelligence, and you get to be a doctor and tell stories about that, which has got to be just crazy stuff that you come across.
Yeah.
Your life, you might be able to do it in different languages, talk about a different country. And even though I may not speak your language, I can relate with, like you said, being the kid that come home from school and watches TV. Because back then there was only so many channels. So I'm with you. I was watching Cosby and what do you call it? Mr. Belvedere and all those different sitcoms back in the day. Because there's only a handful of channels, right? So I'm with you, and I love watching those HBO comedy specials and stuff like that. So I relate to those things, you know.
Yeah.
But now, real quick, tell us about, because I saw this a while ago when it was happening. I think I probably put it on my Comedians Uncorked page on Facebook. You were a part of the World Series of Comedy, correct?
I was, yeah. I had entered it, and it's, you know, I guess this year's just gotten weird, you know, like none of the satellites were able to hold their events. And so all of the contests were video submissions. And so I submitted some of my tape from the Ice House show. You know, there's an audience voting portion. I don't know exactly who got into what satellite, but I was included in 5 satellites, I believe. I think they have 14 total. And so they pick whoever they pick to be a part of those satellites. And I got as far as the wild card round. The initial stages are audience vote. You know, they watch the submissions and the audience votes, and then they move you to the next round. I got the wild card round in Kansas City, and then they take the top 3, and that's a judged portion, I believe. And I didn't advance beyond that. But I, you know, I'm happy that I got to the wild card round.
Wow.
Given my experience. I mean, there's some big names, guys who have, you know, specials and that sort of thing in that thing. So I'm, you know, it's not, to me, it's not the outcome. It's a way to test where you are, you know, like it's the way to show you. And I love seeing comics just crush it, because it always reminds you where you can grow, you know, where you can improve. What are they doing that gets that extra laugh? What are they doing to make that laugh bigger? And I do a lot of contests, mainly just for that sort of reality check, for that experience.
Yeah.
You know, I've been in like the McCurdy's contest. I've been in like the Visani contest locally. I've done, you know, like the Nashville one that I told you about.
Yeah.
And for me, it just keeps me fired up. You know, something keeps you humble, and it keeps you fired up and gives you something to look forward to.
It keeps you learning and growing, right? I mean, it's you know, it shouldn't be misconstrued as depressing, like if you don't advance or win, even though we're all naturally like
expect to, you know.
Yeah. I mean, no, go ahead.
No, I said I never really expect to. You because everything is so subjective, you know. You just submit. You go, I hope, you know. Let's see what happens. I think if you hang your hat on like winning the whole thing every time, then it becomes sort of like you're making yourself, you're kind of defeating yourself, you know, by not taking what you learn from it, rather than, you know, pinning your hopes on getting to whatever level or winning whatever the prize is, you know. Comedy, I'm fortunate that comedy isn't paying my bills. You know, I can do it as a true passion. And so I have an advantage in that I can be objective and honest with it and just do it for its own reward. And I think that allows me to be more free. You know, I think there are comics who are full-time, and I respect that tremendously. But then you have the burden of making a living and the pressures of success on you. And, you know, for me, it's just fun being there among these guys who are full-time, who are more seasoned, so funny, so successful. Right. I just think like, I just want to see where I measure against these guys.
And that's a good way to look into it, or look at it. Because like you said, you know, especially nowadays, when you got these comedians who are all doing it for, like, say, full-time, right? It's what their gig is. And then you have a pandemic like this year. Yeah. Well, there goes your job.
Yeah. I feel for them. It's such a time.
Yeah. I mean, damn, man. It's a weird, and you hear them talk about it. When you hear Rogan or Nikki Glaser or Whitney Cummings, and you hear these people talking about, like Rogan, sometimes he's a little negative. He's like, I don't know, man. You think it's ever going to come back? And he's like, you know, he's being a little facetious and stuff, but it's like, damn. how do we know? Yeah, I guess 2021 is a new year, but do we know if it's all going to get back to 100% capacity again, and everyone's going to be touring again? And I'm trying to rebook shows that I had from this whole year sometime in 2021, but nothing is in stone yet. So it's just like, wow, damn. So that's why I'm going to have my mother. That's why I keep her here, not just to keep her out of the ALF, but to keep her Social Security and her pension coming into the house, because that's my only source of income.
I fully believe it'll come back. There's a really good book that I read that I really loved. It's Cliff Nesteroff, Cliff with a K, K-L-I-F. And it's a book about the history of comedy. And it's like comedians, drunkards, thieves, and something else. I don't remember the exact title, but it's a real interesting book. It's not a funny book at all. Like, they found like a historian, like someone who would write War and Peace, and really document something well. It complete opposite tone to what you would expect. But he goes over the different stages of comedy. Comedy's evolved from vaudeville, from slapstick, where people would just throw each other into walls and fall off, their chair. And there was actually a lot of like knockoff comedians. And then like there were always these tectonic changes in society, and comedy just evolved. Like, it was always there. It just had to adapt. There was a period during the war, World War II, where GI comics came out, right? GI comics would do basically like the initial USO. They would do, GI Charlie or whatever, and they do this routine about being a soldier. And then there were all these knockoff GI Charlie comedians, and that there was an adaptation to the time. And then there was periods where it was like comedy was in nightclubs, like the Copacabana in Miami. Like the mob basically ran comedy out of nightclubs back in the day. And then, now we're obviously in the internet generation. It's just an evolution. I think that it's just going to look a little bit different, but that book showed me that there's been huge storms in society that comedy was able to adapt to and benefit from. It's just whoever figures out what that looks like first.
True. Yeah. No, I agree, and that's true. And you think about that, how it has evolved, much like music, acting, anything in the entertainment, anything in any field. Yes, medicine, everything has evolved. Thank God. Yeah. It's funny though how, equipment and acting and green screen and all kinds of different stuff and medical and musical equipment has evolved, and the basics of comedy is just basically a microphone and people. For the most part, right? It's just a stage or something to stand on. Maybe not even a microphone if there's only a couple of people there. But it's so rudimentary. And it's just so, that's why I love it. That's why it's just so, you can kind of tell the bullshit artists from the people who really are funny, who can stand there, and just say stuff to make strangers laugh. It's so beautiful. So, and that's why I'm digging what you're doing. And I could talk with you for hours about stuff. But I definitely want to have you down the road once I rebook the rooms for my Comedians Uncorked events that I do. And we'll definitely get you up here from Sarasota and get to one of the gigs if you like. So that'd be fun.
Me too. I think I sent you a tape a million years ago, but you probably hated it and rejected it.
I pretended I didn't see it.
You ignored it. I'm calling you up on your show.
No, I loved it. I showed it to all my friends, and I will book you and I'll pay you to tell jokes.
I had a Zoom show recently, and a friend of mine is originally from Russia, and she sort of like, this gave me a lot of hope. She was like, I'll do shows in Russia, and when I go back to Russia, we do shows in Russia. And I'm like, stand-up comedy in Russia. If there's a stereotype of a person, a type of people that wouldn't get stand-up comedy, like in this culture, in this oppressive totalitarian culture, if the Russians can do stand-up comedy, I have more hope than anything that stand-up comedy is going to be fine. It's like, that's the best thing I've ever heard. Could you imagine people are Russians like laughing at a joke?
If we can base the future of comedy shows on one
I
thing,
that room,
and
that's the ultimate test.
Yakov Smirnoff, I think, is still killing it at a casino in the Midwest somewhere. He was like doing a residency for years, doing his Yakov gimmick. So that would be. I don't think I've ever heard, besides Yakov, I don't think I've ever heard a Russian person laugh. So
I want to do that room because I feel like that would be the true test of a comic. If you're any good, you're going to go in a room with 100 Russians.
Yeah.
And only ever seen this look on their face. You know, if I can make them crack a smile, I'll call it a success. It literally would be a cold room. Like you're in Siberia and it's -40 and they're all drinking vodka.
Right.
And please laugh at my jokes. Like I need that to happen in my life. I actually missed, you brought up Yakov Smirnoff. I missed his show. He came to Sarasota like in March. And it was right at the beginning of the whole COVID thing. And a good friend of mine asked me to go to his show. And I kind of freaked out. You know, it was just too much unknown. So I missed it. And I regret it because it sounds like he's taken a pretty wild journey since the Yakov we knew. He became a marriage counselor, apparently. and a lot of his humor now is about marriage counseling. But I get that to me, I don't know if that's a joke. Like, could you imagine going to Yakov Smirnoff when you're like debating whether to divorce your wife and he's like, I can't even do his laugh. Like that's the guy counseling you on your marriage.
I mean, at least he's not trying to be an ear, nose, and throat guy. He knows his lane. He knows he's staying in it. But you're right, though. I mean, a guy like, I didn't know he was doing that. I thought he was just doing like, you know, but it just goes to show you, you get bored. He's been relevant, questionably, since the 80s, right? But I mean, every time you talk about Russia or a Russian comic, who's the first person and the only person you think of?
Yeah.
Yakov Smirnoff. So good. If he's got a side gig, a side hustle, being a marriage counselor, that's got to be amazing because at least if you are getting a divorce, at least you hopefully have a couple of laughs in the meantime. Yeah. But it's a weird time we're living in, my friend. And, and
doctors in comics are becoming marriage counselors.
I love it though. Like everyone's a former WWE superstar Mick Foley. He's doing stand-up. He's touring around. King Kong Bundy used to do it, I think. I mean, all these different guys from different areas are trying to be comics, and that's great, man. I go on stage and do it. Now, Foley, to his credit, I did see his special on Netflix where he was like in Pittsburgh, and it was basically him just talking about stories. Oh, yeah. But the guy is very intelligent, and his stories are fantastic.
Yeah.
And he bases it about not cursing. And he goes, I'm only going to say the F word once. And the first time he goes to say it, he goes, no, not yet. And then it's great, though, because you forget about it. And then at the end, when he sets up this great story, he hits it with that. And you just die laughing because you totally forgot he was teasing it earlier. So yeah, I mean, he was good. But no, I'm happy to see everyone do comedy, man. I'm such a fan of people. I used to. I mean, it's really not a competition. It is, but it's not. I want to see people do good because I want to be on their shows. I want them to be like you. I want them to be on my shows. Yeah. I want us to promote more. I want the Tampa comedy scene to be as buddy as I see some of the guys in Orlando. I don't know what's clicky. I'm 50 years old, man. I'm too old for clicks. I'm too old I'm too old for the bullshit. I'm like, listen, I thought of Comedians Uncorked a couple of years ago. That's all I did. I didn't have any equipment. I had the comics for the show. Yeah. I didn't have a venue. I didn't have a name. I didn't have anything. So like, I'm like, I got to do this because I got nothing going on. So, you know, like you said about being full-time and trying to pay your bills, it's a bitch out there. It's tough. Yeah. When the pandemic hit, it's like, damn. But I've had my fair share of real world jobs over the years, man. You know, I was in radio for many years, but before that, in between, I had my real world jobs. And it's like, I just at my age now, I'd rather avoid it if I can. I'm just, this right here, it's stress enough. But like you said, though, it's still fun. Like you're doing comedy right now. It's still a passion, but you're not relying to pay bills. So it frees you up, I think. It frees you up mentally to let it flow. Yeah. And that's so refreshing to hear someone go, you know, I fell in love with this. I love comedy. I'm writing every day. I'm going to classes. I'm taking comedy seriously. And it's just so refreshing. So I love it. And we're going to get back to normal here soon. And we're going to get you on a show without a doubt.
I'm there. And
Real quick, tell folks how can they. Well, first off, I had one question from Chris in Tampa, and he was talking, and you kind of mentioned it before about your love for comedy when you came to America. But like, what was the main thing? I think what he was trying to ask is, what was the main thing then that got you to do stand up a couple of years ago, where you said, "Hey, you know what? I feel I can do this."
So, I mean, I think it was the seed was growing in me, like I'm a funny person, and I got to a sort of a plateau in my life professionally. Like I got to sort of the top of the my world, but it was repetitive. It was just going to work, collecting your check, and then just sort of the same thing. And it just felt like there was this whole other part of me, like a creative side of me that I hadn't touched. Like going to medicine is so demanding that you shelf everything in your life. I mean, you miss family things. Some doctors don't see their kids very much, and so you make these huge sacrifices. And then at some point in your life, if something means a lot to you, you have to make time for it. And I felt like this creative, humorous side of me that loved making people laugh, I just needed to honor that part of me, or else I wasn't going to be a whole person. So I was just looking up comedy classes, and McCurdy's popped up. It's it's where I live. I went, I did it, and everything about it, there's sort of like this barrier that keeps people off the stage. For me, it's like, I'm a doctor, I'm a professional, I'm older, why am I doing this? And am I funny? And the terror of seeking the approval of strangers. But once you break through that barrier and realize it's just an opportunity to showcase, your skill and your ability and your humor, and you prove to yourself that you can do it. It's like you're hooked. You're like a fish on a line, And really, it was just a part of me that was bursting out of like the shell that I created. There's a worldly shell of obligation, of work, of family, of all this stuff that kind of, you sort of stay in that lane, but there's so much to each person that's interesting. If you are a musician, if you're an artist, if you're a whatever, I think you need that person to be alive for you to be a whole and full person. So for me, it was just really rounding myself off as a human.
That's cool. And you may have just answered the next question here, and we'll wrap up shortly because I know you're busy. What someone comes up to you, maybe not your kids when they get older, but a stranger, a friend, someone, maybe someone at the show, they contact you and go, "I want to do what you're doing." Not like medical, but I'm dying to get on stage and I'm scared. So you kind of mentioned it right there. Well, what kind of like positive stuff, like, because you were there too, we were all there our first time on stage. They go, "I want to do it. What bridge do I got to cross? How do I do this?"
I'm a huge fan of these little workshops, Like I think there are people who will go to an open mic, and you have different experiences there. You kind of go in a little bit without any knowledge of how to do it, without any idea of joke structure. And then it may be a terrible experience. There may not be a lot of supportive people there, and then you're scared away forever. And then you never get a fair shot. What I would suggest is investing in a little local course. I had a really good experience at McCurdy's. They gave me 3 classes. They were 4 hours each, cost me like $200. They teach you the basics, and then you do it, and you just have to know going ahead that what people don't realize is most comics have been doing comedy for decades before you see them. It looks natural, but it's not. And so knowing that it's a hard thing to do and that it may not go well, but with work you can do it. I think that's the sort of thing that will arm you with, and then you can do it well. If you get 1 laugh out of 5 minutes, I think everyone it has that same endorphin rush, that same dopamine hit that makes you want to come back. I think it's good for anybody for whatever reason. If you're a professional and you have to speak to people, if you have to give presentations, I think it's an experience that would be good for every person at least once, even if you never do it more than once, just as a character building exercise. So just do it.
And that is great. And I like the thing about the workshops because you're right. There is a difference. And we all make fun about comedy classes, but if there's a workshop with purpose to teach you things and that's a fantastic thing. But you're right. Open mics can be bad because a lot of it is other comedians or other bad comedians that are starting out and no one's laughing. You're nervous as hell. And that's funny you said about people and any like presenters, people who have to speak for a living, or not a living, but have to do presentations. I say the same thing. I go, you should do comedy. I go, get an airplane bottle of something or do a shot of something, go to an open mic or go somewhere and tell some jokes.
Yeah.
And I especially tell that to the people who think they can just do it because they think they're funny. Like, people like that we know, or friends of friends, and they always want to be the life of the party. And they're like, oh, wow, if Pat can do comedy. I'm like, well, you should try it. You should do 2-3 minutes. They're like, oh, 2-3 minutes. I'm like, yeah, that's an eternity when you stop.
It's an eternity.
So, but you're right though. If you get on stage, have a drink, whatever you want to do, and it's different to talk to people in a presentation, right? Talking about PowerPoints than saying, so listen, if I go into this bar the other night, let me tell you, and you're trying to make people laugh, like it's so different. So I totally agree about the workshop. That's a great idea for anybody, for seasoned people, for people starting out, and people just in general who are terrified of microphones. Again, my radio background helped me speak in front of people, doing live events or on stage in front of thousands of people. But it's different to say, hey, it's Pat Largo, it's so-and-so, blah, 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 come on out right now and welcome to coming to the stage here in a few seconds, blah, blah. And that's no big deal. But being in front of 100 people and trying to make them laugh for 30 to 40 minutes, that's a whole different ball game where you go, Jesus, God, I'm sweating up here, So I agree with everything you said about that, though.
I did a professional speaking engagement once, and this is before I did comedy. I was asked to do a 15-minute professional discussion, and I won't say where.
Okay.
But it was sort of a throwaway talk. They kind of asked me to fill in at the last minute. Someone had canceled on them, so I was sort of the sub. And they didn't really give me an agenda. They just gave me a topic and said, this can be a light, loose lecture. And I went up and I did 15 minutes, and it was pretty much my first comedy set. I just decided to make it funny. I didn't have enough time to make it like technical. And the place was in an uproar, and they had paid a professional speaker $25,000 to be there. And that guy ate it. And it was my first real experience, like being in a club, someone having a hard time following somebody else. And it was, I'm not saying that I'm not trying to toot my own horn. I'm just saying that's the kind of thing that this empowers you to do, having that power over an audience, being able to captivate them, and at the end of the seminar, the audience rates the talks, and my talk was number one because they needed humor in that day. The whole day was so dry that made it memorable. And so it's a tool in real life, and I'm not trying to sell comedy classes here. My club, the one that I consider home, is Laugh in Fort Myers. They actually do a Sunday workshop that's free. And they do an every other week open mic, and it's a great mic. There's usually a huge audience there. So you could go there, do a Sunday workshop, work on material, and then I don't remember how often the workshops occur, but there's open mics, and a lot of the guys have come out of that locally that are regulars. So I mean, it's not as hard. It doesn't have to be like an expensive class or course or whatever, but it's just giving yourself a little bit of a knowledge, and then having the courage to carry it through.
And putting the work in, man. I could talk about that story for a long time about you going up there. And I mean, think about that. That's like you improv it. They gave you a topic, right? You went in cold.
Yeah.
Well, your professionalism, but most important, your talent of being funny. Now, you can give it to someone else. You can give it to that speaker or someone else and go, hey, can you sub for 15 minutes? Here's a topic. And they might be able to talk about stuff. Yeah. That's great. But you're able to put a twist. See, that's it. I'm that way too. I want to put a little twist. If I have the opportunity and the green light to do a joke or to make something lighthearted, to get laughter, because people are tense, like you said, right? They got a long day of talks, and you get to give them a little couple of shots of a humor injection. That's fantastic. And then they
Yeah.
remember you. And if the professional, like you said, is following you, he or she wasn't expecting you to kill, and their deal isn't comedy, so they're gonna pale in comparison to what you just did. No, it's great, man. But no, we'll do some more shouts out about that with Laugh In, McCurdy's, anyone else who's got workshops and stuff. I don't know if the Improv here in Tampa is. They used to years ago. I know Side Splitters did years ago, but I do totally agree about the workshop stuff. Let me pop this up real quick here. Let me see if we can get you on. Here's your Facebook page, Vien. In the meantime, you want to let folks how they can get a hold of you for bookings or just to get a hold of you to see your show schedule?
Yeah, my website's comicdoc.com. My Facebook, I have a Comic Doc Facebook page, and all my information's on there. You send me an email. My email's vien@comicdoc.com.
Okay.
So you can see what my events are, and you can see what my contact is. And I have a show this Saturday, 2 shows this Saturday featuring at Laugh In.
Okay.
So anyone wants to come see me, they can.
Good. So Laugh In 2 shows. And I just want to make sure maybe it's my old browser, but I clicked on your website earlier and it gave me a could not view type thingy. So I'll have to go back and
I think you were on my personal page, which is fine. I mean,
okay.
I post is comedy. I mean, I post my dates and updates and all that stuff on there too.
All right.
There is a Comic Doc Facebook page that is more specific to dates and events and that sort of thing.
Good. I like that, man. Well, good. So people can reach you there. You a couple of shows this weekend at Laugh In. I can't wait to get down there again. That's one of my ones that got canceled a couple of months ago. So it's a great place down there. And yeah, anytime you have info, I don't know if you're doing anything at a workshop and you want to plug it, come on, we'll do this. Cause I wouldn't mind even, like I said, I'm in Pasco. It's a bit of a drive to Fort Myers, but it would be fun to go down to a workshop, drive down there one day and do a workshop and maybe stay over and do the open mic the next night or something like that. Or just to, or if McCurdy's has one, drive down to Sarasota. I haven't been to McCurdy's in years. So
Laugh In's open mic is actually tonight. They do it every other week. So
oh, wow.
Still, they have an online sign up. If you go to their website, you purchase a $0 ticket, and that's how you sign up for their open mic. So that's tonight. I'm going to do some new material tonight, see if it has any legs, and then I'm doing the feature tomorrow.
Dude, I love it. That's great. And I hope McCurdy starts doing some shows soon because I do my weekend, my like a little update as to shows in the areas of all the comedy clubs. And I noticed the Improv wasn't doing anything until September 25th with Michael Blackson. And I checked on McCurdy's website, and I don't think he had anything scheduled, or it said closed right now or something.
It was originally going to open back up in July or August, but then they extended that, and I haven't heard anything since. So there's nothing in this area.
That's so
the only thing that's running regularly is Mike Stevens from McCurdy's does do a Cabo Bar open mic every Thursday. So that's here. Free plug for Mike and his show. But
all right, good to know. Yeah, because I want to make sure we get as much going on here as possible. Yeah. Well, Vien, thank you, man, so much for just spending some time with me and everything. And I'll talk to you off the air about this growth on my nose. Maybe we'll see what doctor I could choose to get that.
I'm cross-eyed from looking at that thing.
Dude, the way 2020 is going, I don't even want to know what the hell's going on with this thing. But Vien, hang on, Phommachanh.
Phommachanh, good, close enough.
Ah, damn it, I tried. Well, thank you again, man. Good luck with everything and kick ass at the Laugh In this weekend. And I'd like to have you on sometime again real soon. Thank you so much. Glad to be here. Beware of that dog. Beware that wiener. That's right. And folks, as always, don't forget, thanks for tuning in to Comedians Uncorked, Uncut. And as always, laugh. You deserve it.